Hello, I'm going to be talking about Ziam. This is a horror movie from Thailand. It's a zombie film combined with a martial arts movie, which I like. I like the idea of genres being combined together. That often is a recipe for refreshing storytelling. You might have seen Army of the Dead, a Netflix film directed by Zack Snyder. That combined the heist movie with the zombie flick, and that was a lot of fun actually. And you might have read the novel World War Z. I highly recommend all you zombie fans out there, if you haven't read it, it's a cracking read. And in that book, the author talks about a martial art that is invented to specifically deal with zombies. Very clever. In this film in Ziam, they don't have a martial art that's specifically tailored to zombies, but I'm hoping one day World War Z is readapted, because I did not like the movie starring Brad Pitt very much. I thought it was a terrible adaptation. I didn't enjoy the film. I really hope that World War Z gets another go. Probably a miniseries would be a way to go with it. Anyway, back to Ziam. Ziam has an apocalypse followed by a further apocalypse. So the first apocalypse that comes is climate change, catastrophe that decimates the world, leads to starvation. And the second apocalypse unfolds within the film, which is the zombie outbreak. You might have seen an apocalypse followed by another apocalypse in one movie in particular, in Mad Max 2, the George Miller film, one of the greatest action movies of all time. In that movie, the first apocalypse is the breakdown of the rule of law, and then the second apocalypse is a nuclear war. Here, so Ziam has this similar ambitions, and we get to also see a little glimpse of what's going on in Thailand. But unfortunately, there's not enough world building in Ziam. Set 10 years in the future, we get dubious sloganeering from an announcer talking about what the government is doing, and this new government in the future is called the Special Governing Council. So there's a little bit of substance, but there's not enough attention to detail, unfortunately. We do get at the beginning of Ziam a glimpse of the dystopian sort of lawlessness and a bleak survival of the fittest that is now sort of de rigueur in the world. And then we get the sudden zombie outbreak, and that is caused by contaminated fish that has had bacteria inside it. The fish consume bacteria from that's come from melted polar ice caps. So at least a different way of the reason why zombies are coming about. So a person eats the fish and has to go to a hospital, and that hospital has about 500 people in it, and the outbreak begins. So it's not that clear, though, the chain of events about what leads to this zombie apocalypse. They could have done with a bit more fleshing that out. But, the film doesn't waste much time. The leads, in particular, are two people. One is a doctor. Her name is Rin, and she's a doctor and surgeon in a hospital in Bangkok, and that's where ground zero is for the outbreak of the zombie apocalypse. And her boyfriend is called Singh, and Singh is a martial artist, and he's a courier in the wastelands. And the plot is Rin gets trapped in the hospital as the zombie outbreak occurs, and Singh goes to rescue her and attempts to fight his way up the building to get to her. It reminds obviously of The Raid, not in that class of amazing action. Ziam is the action sequences aren't particularly good, and The Raid, if you haven't seen it, from an Indonesian movie, is fantastic, and The Raid 2, its sequel, check those two out. Also, I didn't like the plot point of a lady needing to be rescued. It feels a bit regressive. Rin can handle her own sometimes, but it would have been better if they were fighting their way towards each other through the building rather than Singh rising up through the building. It would be nice to have Rin as resourceful. Obviously, it's not obvious, but Singh is the martial artist, but Rin isn't a martial artist, but she's a doctor, and maybe the filmmakers didn't want us to have a doctor, dishing out death with abandon. But I don't know. I feel like I'm clutching at straws to defend the film because it is wafer thin characterization, and it would have been far more interesting to have the two fight their way towards each other. And we get a glimpse a bit of how bad things are, because a character announces that Bangkok's population is 5 million, and the population right now I believe is over 17 million. So we're seeing in the film, or hearing in the film, the devastation that the apocalypse has caused, the climate apocalypse, to the population size. And the government have surrounded the hospital, and and the soldiers and law enforcement are pretty merciless, like gunning down infected and uninfected alike. So we've got this sort of trap situation where this couple are trying to rescue each other, get out. It reminded me of, Dawn of the Dead, but I mean, Ziam is not in the same league as George Romero's, classic, iconic film from the 70s, but that sort of contained zombie movie, is what Zion reminds me of, but it pales in comparison, unfortunately. And for the zombie genre fans, these zombies are of the athletic kind rather than the meandering kind. There's a human villain, of course, and that villain is a cipher for corporate heartlessness. And not only Singh and Rin got to contend with the human villain, the zombies, the law enforcement, like containing everyone. There's also been a bomb placed inside the hospital that's set to go off in about half an hour in movie time, to level the building, while some of the law enforcement go in to try and rescue some VIPs. So you got a ticking time bomb premise. So you think that there'd be a lot of tension in Zion, but unfortunately there isn't. There's not really any inventive set pieces. It's not a very good film, unfortunately. There's some odd choices of editing and camera work. And also, like I said, there's inadequate attention to detail. For example, the hospital lights, the fluorescent lights overhead are flickering. I don't know why. I mean, the other lights are working. So why are the hospital lights, suddenly flickering? It makes me think of like those kind of space movies where the spaceship has been drifting for decades, and then some astronauts who shouldn't be doing that go in to investigate. But so it's like, I don't know why the hospital lights are flickering, some of them. And the dialogue is perfunctory as well, which hampers the performances. However, a positive is the makeup effects are excellent. The gore. For those that like the horror movies gory, there's lots of gore. The makeup effects are skillful. But overall, Ziam is not a great film. There's allegory, but it's not imaginative enough. The experience feels derivative. More should be done with the martial arts aspect. I was hoping when I cottoned onto the premise that they would have done something very, different with it, or very out there with it, but unfortunately not. There is a sequel that's sort of set up at the end of the film, but I'm not really interested in sitting through another one of these. But if you are interested in international zombie movies, I've got some to recommend. So put this on your to watch list. Firstly, Wreck from Spain. It's a cracking zombie movie. It's again set in a contained space in an apartment building as zombie outbreak occurs. I remember seeing it in the cinema. It was so scary. I eventually bought it on Blu-ray. Very scary film. Wreck, it's called, and the sequel's pretty good. Wreck 2. So that's the sort of a follow-up that sort of starts almost immediately after the first one, if I remember correctly. We check out the first one. Then we've got from Germany, Rambok. It's a short zombie film. I would have liked it to have been longer because I was enjoying it so much. But it's cracking as well, like Wreck. That one is set in an apartment complex in Germany, so that's called Rambok. So yeah, put that on your list. Also, Seoul Station. It's an animated zombie film from South Korea. It's bleak, but very good. So that's Soul Station. And then we've got, if you like your zomcoms, your zombie comedies, then you've got the Dead Snow films from Scandinavia. So the first one is Dead Snow. The second one is called Dead Snow Red versus Dead. That's even better. Actually, Dead Snow 2, I bought it on Blu-ray. I enjoyed it so much. It's even more ambitious than the first one. That's a fun film. And then you've got another zomcom, this time from Japan. It's called One Cut of the Dead. It's fantastic. I love that film. Again, I bought it because I enjoyed it so much. It's very clever. It's not just about zombies, it's about the nature of filmmaking. It's sort of a meta film. So that's called One Cut of the Dead. And of course, another zomcom, one of the sort of modern classics, Brain Dead, from New Zealand, directed by Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings fame, is so gory. So if you like your zomcoms gory, that's a really gory film, Brain Dead. So check out those that I've just mentioned. Also, if you like, the martial arts that are shown in the film, it's too brief, unfortunately, but there's two cracking Thai martial arts movies from the same director. One is called Chocolate, and the other one is called Ong Bak. So Chocolate and Ong Bak. Check out those martial arts movies. If you like your martial arts combat films, then those two, put them on your list. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and like the video.